So it's been raining all morning. This is the worst of my areas. This is the cow barn. You can see I still have gravel and dirt mixed up in there. The cows' feet are dry where they're eating, but it's still really mucky because I do get some run through from the ground here, and we still need to bring in some more gravel, build that up a little bit to kind of divert some of the flow. This is the pen where the llamas eat, and you can see it doesn't look too bad. And that's the gravel leading over to where the paddocks are. And I will get back to the paddocks in just a minute, but you can see where the gravel works down into the soil and forms a solid base, and then the grass just starts to grow up through it. And so you end up with a nice lovely turf through the rock with a nice stable bottom on it. And that's been working really well. We're still waiting for, obviously, the spring and summer grasses to come in. So this is about as muddy as it's going to get. The pasture's pretty green because we overseed with the winter rye every year, which lasts through the winter. You sow it in September, and it lasts through the year, into the next year until about May, when things really start heating up and the other grasses are coming in, and then that annual rye dries off. So I will get back to the paddocks here in just a little bit, but this is my walkway through. This would be pretty muddy if I didn't have the gravel down. And you can see over here, this is a whole gravel pad that I have put down, and you can see how much grass has grown up through it in the last couple of years, and you end up with that thatch base and a little bit of dirt and silt that runs in and blows in. But you run in with that, and then there's my pasture drag for breaking up cow poop. But you can see, even where the water pools, it's just a solid base for my feet. I'm not slipping, I'm not sliding, and I'm not sinking, which I absolutely love, because after the Texas mud we had, I never wanted to see mud ever again. That was absolutely the worst thing I have ever known. Now this is a trench, and it gets a lot of runoff, but you can see it's still not, it's a little bit boggy here right now, but as soon as the sun comes out and the grasses start coming on back, that'll just be dry as a bone, and we drive through it without a problem. We walk through it without a problem. I've got gravel down on my wash rack area. I still have not put down the rubber mats I want to put on top of that, but it works fine for a grooming area. I've got cross ties on this end, and a little short hitching post for, works great for Jazzy, works great for Itty Bitty Pumpkin, my miniature Mediterranean donkey. So now I'm going into the paddocks through one of the other gates, and you can see the cows were in here all night because the gates were wide open, so whoever wanted shelter could find shelter, because it did get a little thundery and all. But you can see this would be really muddy right now. In fact, it used to be, but I have followed my criteria of I only want gravel two places in my yard. I want it where I drive, and I want it where I walk. So, keeping with that, we have put down quite a bit, and it has just been a godsend. And again, as soon as the grass grows up through it, you don't have to worry about gravel in horses' feet and all that good stuff. Yes, there were cows that visited Jazzy's stall last night, you can tell. But she's in eating her breakfast this morning. She's a happy girl. She came running up at a gallop. So I think she's doing good and feeling good. She's a little bit wet, but she will dry off. And she likes this stall. It's a bigger stall. And then I have an extra little stall down there I haven't done anything with yet. And I think used to either be, maybe it was a, what do you call it? A little pen for the calves when they start eating on their own, and you don't want all the other cows eating their food, because if you look here, there's a little gate inside a gate, and it's just big enough for a small calf to get in and get around. But eventually I wanted this to be Pumpkin's stall because it's smaller and everything's low, and she's my little shorty on the place. So anyway, and I have another stall over here that I just use for storage right now. I've got all kinds of whatnots in it. There's my llama chute we use when we have to vet the llamas or if we have to shear them, which we do once a year. And these are the other posts we're putting in now. We're replacing all our T-posts, trying to pull down all our barbed wire, which is a very daunting task. It almost would have been easier to start from nothing in some respects. But anyway, so I've got a gate here that goes out to the back. This is our land back here. Eventually I'm probably going to build another shelter for the llamas back here because they love this spot. It's got trees, it's on a hillside. They like to be up high where they can see what's going on. And they're just about the nosiest things I've ever seen. Them and the cows. Much more curious about things than horses are, surprisingly. So this is Miss Kitty's little paddock, and she's got half that original run-in that we built. And we're just finishing putting up posts. We haven't started putting up the top rails yet. And we have a walk-through gate to the back area, and then also a big 12-foot gate where we can get the tractor or the little UTV through. But again, this area here gets a lot of runoff, gets a lot of mud, used to get a lot of mud, and now it's great. It's stable. I just love it. Just love it. So, and this is my new Butterball. She's not new. I've had her a year and a half, but this is my Butterball Hope, and she is quite round. She's a super easy keeper and loves her food. But this is her paddock, and this is the last one that we've just been working on. So we have a walk-through gate and a drive-through gate for the tractor or whatever. And this area here is where it's a higher spot, so I had never bothered to put much gravel over here. So this gets pretty mushy. And it is clay, but it's still, you can see, because we're on the hill and we're getting runoff, it's just not that bad. Now inside the stall, I have not raised this up with gravel at all. I'll bring in gravel and rubber pads on top of that, but you can see the cows come in here and mush it all up, and it's still getting some water running through from the top side. So that'll be remedied with gravel and rubber mats, and it'll be fine. There's my pumpkin. Oh, she's the sweetest baby in the whole world. Her and Jazzy. I could live the rest of my life with just those two. And back to where I kind of started before. Here's my llama pen. I built it onto the end of it's about a 10-foot long section on the end of the cattle barn. And I close them up in there to keep the cows out when they first start eating, and then I open it up and they have some shelter. They would like their own place. They don't particularly like hanging out with cows because cows are rude and they stink. And the llamas really aren't into that. So, but other than that, this is one trench that we've always had that gets a little bit deeper every year, and we're trying to remedy it with rocks and eventually some larger size gravel. But the water needs to flow off. It's going to flow off down this mountain that's behind me regardless. But what I have to say is there are plenty of times, especially when we're having flood warnings around here, when, even though I've got two waterfalls coming off the side of the mountain, one of them goes and fills my pond, but I'm happy we're not on a flat spot where the water can pool. And so that's something to consider. If you're looking for a property, that's definitely something that you want to consider, is the runoff. Not just the type of dirt, but what kind of runoff do you get. So anyway, it's starting to rain again. I'm gonna put all my feed buckets away, and there's my chicken Pippin. She's the one I hatched from a mail order fertilized egg back in Texas on my kitchen counter. And her other sister, Wella, must be off eating worms because there's lots of them floated up from the water. So they're having a great time today. So, but anyway, you can see, I think probably how my mountain is so steep up behind the house. And so we do get runoff, but it's diverted in a various set of ways. I've got some that comes down off the back of the house into gutters, and then the runoff from that French drain. And so what we did was we built in a little trench in the lawn for it to run through, and that's what That's what this is cutting through. So we need to put some bigger rocks in there because these heavy Alabama storms will float small gravel, and this gravel is I think about the smallest you can get. You can see in my hand that's about the sizes I've got, and so I need to get probably about 2 sizes up. And then for the real big trenches, we'll get something they call riprap and bring in some of that, and then you can put in smaller ones with it and all holds in place. So anyway, that's my water story and mud story for the morning. Love my gravel.